Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go.
Hello and welcome to today's DNS session. We shall have a discussion on today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition dated 9th October 2021. We shall pick up articles important for civil service exam and discuss them as per the demand of the exam.
Journalists from Philippines and Russia have won Nobel Peace Prize. Incidentally, in recent time, these two countries have very poor record in freedom of expression. In Reporters Without Borders ranking, Philippines stand at 138 out of 180 countries and Russia at 150. This move by Nobel Peace Committee has been seen as very strategic because freedom of expression is considered to be a fundamental basic right from which other rights emanates. Freedom of expression getting impinged by certain dispensation in some countries in recent times is creating a global problem. The problem of not only human right, but also of global peace. According to the World Press Freedom Index of Reporters Without Borders, 73% of total 180 countries for which the report gives the ranking have situation that has been classified as difficult or very serious. While recommending the award to these journalists, the Nobel Committee has said that fight for freedom of expression is vital for promoting peace. The committee has said that free, independent and fact-based journalism serves to protect against abuse of power, lies and war propaganda. Without freedom of expression and freedom of press, it will be difficult to stressfully promote fraternity between nations, disarmament, and better world order to succeed in our time. Very concisely, the committee has given the essence, the significance, the importance of freedom of expression. And this is what we will take up further in our discussion, stressing upon various aspects of freedom of expression. See, as human beings, we have some natural rights. And as citizens of nations, we have fundamental, constitutional and legal rights. Freedom of expression is considered to be one of the most basic, natural and fundamental right. Article 19 of Universal Declaration for Human Rights has recorded freedom of expression as a fundamental human right. It has been noted in Universal Declaration of Human Rights that freedom of expression, along with the corollaries, the ancillary rights like freedom of information and freedom of press, these rights, freedom of expression and rights that fundamentally comes from it, serves as enabler of all other rights. United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights that was adopted in 1966 also states that everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference. Freedom of expression. Now you will start seeing the link as to why this right is so important and why it is considered as basic, fundamental, natural right for human beings. See, the Convention on Rights of Persons with Civil Liberties, Article 21 of this convention says that state parties shall take all appropriate measures to ensure that persons with disabilities can exercise the right to freedom of expression and opinion. Right to freedom of expression and right to freedom to give opinions helps a lot. It helps in the democratic participation of citizens. It helps in remedy of the constitutional and fundamental rights. The first amendment that was done to the Constitution of United States was concerning exactly this. It made the right to freedom of speech and press freedom as an absolute right. The amendment said that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or freedom of press. So freedom of expression and the associated right to information and freedom of press is considered as fundamental and is seen as a necessary right for peace to prevail in society. Let's begin our discussion from the individual level. As human beings, the highest need of ours is dignity. When the lower need of food, shelter, clothing and physical relation that is completed, then comes the higher spiritual need of human beings, and the highest need in that category is dignity. Immanuel Kant has said that autonomy is the root of human dignity and all sources of morality. Autonomy is closely related in terms of right with liberty. And one important aspect of liberty is freedom of expression. So reaching to the highest level of human need, freedom of expression is important. And the moral conduct of human beings also depends upon whether he or she is living a dignified life or not. All these things depends upon whether the individual has got the right to freedom of expression or not. If you have to write the next mains examination, preamble is one basic, simple but very effective thing that's going to help you a lot. You can use this in answer writing, you can use this in essays, anywhere you wish. Preamble talks about liberty, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. Freedom of expression has been mentioned in the preamble. It's an important constitutional promise to the citizens. Once individuals have justice and liberty, freedom of expression, only then equality and fraternity can be ensured. So at the interface of individuals and society, there would arise a question whether the individual is getting just treatment and whether there is equality prevailing in society. And that will decide whether there will prevail fraternity in society or not. Fraternity, cohesion is very important for tolerance and peace. For this, there has to be sense of equality. And for that, there has to be an individual sense of rights like freedom of expression. If this is curtailed, if this right is choked, then there will be no sense of equality, there is no cushion of fraternity, there will be no social cohesion, there will be no tolerance, there will be no peace. Freedom of expression is so very important because it helps in maintaining one's individuality. When there is so much diversity in society, people have different thoughts, different ideas, different philosophical subscription, different sexual orientation, different outlook towards this world. There is a need for protecting citizens' individuality, creating safeguards against the risk of majoritarianism. There has been various judgments of Supreme Court in the recent time that ensures individuality of citizens, like the Puttaswamy judgment that has declared privacy as a fundamental right. Supreme Court made very strong observation in the Tej Singh Johar case. It said that an individual's right to develop one's individuality against the demand of social conformity must be recognized. Supreme Court in Sabrimala judgment has observed that individual freedom prevails over purported group rights even in the matter of religion. So much of stress has been given by the apex court to maintain one's individuality because it helps in giving space for freedom of expression. And that helps in making the individual a unit in the socio-political system, just like cells of organisms where different cells work for the betterment of body and body works for protecting the cells. That would create peace in society. Freedom of expression has protected and promoted creativity in our society. And through creativity, human beings have progressed. Sometimes new ideas come in conflict with the settled accepted norms of society, and that creates problem for individuals. Supreme Court in Ranga Rajan versus P. Jagjeevan Ram case has said that mere threat to public order cannot be the ground to suppress freedom of expression. Because freedom of expression is important not only for individuals, but for progress of mankind. When you move further from the individual and the interface of individual and society, when you start looking things at the social scale, the problem is of discrimination. And a thing about discrimination is sections which are already marginalized, they have to face more discrimination. For example, minorities, whether ethnic, religious, gender, linguistic, LGBT community, sexual minorities, differently abled people, their freedom of expression is curtailed more. And they have to face more discrimination in society, making things worse. There is a very, very strong link between freedom of expression and deplorable condition of certain sections of people. People with curtailed freedom of expression are unable to communicate. They are unable to put across their ideas, put across their demand. They have limited means to remedy for their rights. They are mostly excluded from any meaningful participation, any debate, discussion, deliberation in the process of governance. And this has been duly recognized in the constitutional values that we have in the international conventions, that discrimination is one of the core elements of unequal access to freedom of expression. And if you just come to think about it, your mind will be flooded with examples as to how communities who are marginalized, they also have curtailed, they are the one having curtailed freedom of expression. For example, in the context of LGBT rights, their events like pride parades, LGBT literatures, their artwork, Very often they are blocked or attempts are made to hinder them. Freedom of expression becomes more important when a community has to strive politically to attain rights. And for political struggle, it's important that they have means at their disposal to exercise their freedom of expression. And if freedom of expression is curtailed, then their whole struggle would also be curtailed. And hence it will become very difficult to win the rights. And after they win legal rights, there is a continuous political struggle to get it implemented. Because if they are unable to impact the policy making process of the nation, then they become vulnerable for violation of their rights. And vulnerable sections, they desire to be politically active. They desire to participate in the governance process. United Nations Human Development Report has multiple times observed that people do not want to be passive participants, merely casting votes in elections. They want to have an active part in the decisions and events that shape their lives. For example, women in Bihar election, they have been very important pressure group in shaping the policy of the state. You will see certain policy of the state like prohibition to get influenced by the women of the states. This was possible because the women could exercise their right to freedom of expression. If that very right would not have been available to them, then their political participation would not have been possible. When freedom of expression starts getting stifled, then it becomes difficult to have a counter narrative of hate speech or excess by the government. PEN America, it's a literary and human rights organization, it has highlighted that government across the world, they are punishing the dissenters in the guise of digital sovereignty. For example, Nigerian government banned Twitter in June after the platform revoked a post from the president. The criticism was that the president was creating a civil war sentiment through his posts. So the post was taken down. But in the name of digital sovereignty, Twitter itself was banned in the month of June. In absence of freedom of expression and the ancillary right of freedom of press, government's excess can be seen. And when government's excess come into force, rights of the citizens will be affected, sometime maybe dismantled. If you move further, increasing the scale size, if you talk on the social and national level, there's a concept of development as freedom. This in fact is a book by Nobel laureate Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen has argued that freedom of expression is vital to both to the development process and to development goal in its own right. Amartya Sen says that expansion of freedom is both the primary end and the principal means of development. That means development should be seen as expansion of freedom. Amartya Sen in his book identifies 5 distinct types of freedom: political freedom, economic facilities, social opportunities, transparency guarantees, and protective security. This political freedom has much to do with freedom of expression. According to this approach led by Amartya Sen, freedom of expression, political freedom, should be seen as development in itself. It is a principal means for development of other areas, and it's a fundamental end in itself. Success of any democracy, because of diversity, actually depends upon how well the principles of equality and non-discrimination are implemented. Freedom of expression is required not only to give individuality to citizens, enhance creativity, create a sense of equality and fraternity, but it also helps in formation of public opinion. It creates informed citizens. It makes the citizens informed. And only informed citizens can make right choices, not only vis-a-vis casting vote, but having an informed public opinion. And when that happens, only then society will be truly free. So freedom of expression is not just individual rights. It is important for society as a whole. A society that does not give enough space for freedom of expression, that is not well placed to resolve socio-economic political conflicts. Not giving freedom of expression, the possibility of political participation, is the main cause of conflict in societies. And when the conflict has already erupted or is brewing, then lack of information can be the final nail in the coffin. It makes people vulnerable for easy manipulation. There is unease in the masses. They are desperate, restless. They do not have the ability to take informed decisions. And when decisions are not rational, there reigns in chaos. That is why United Nations Millennium Declaration has stressed the need to ensure the freedom of the media to perform their essential role, and the right of public to have access to information. And this ultimately helps developing order and peace in society. Now I hope you will understand the significance of Nobel Peace Prize being given to reporters who have raised their voice to protect the freedom of expression. There is an article on page number 1. Supreme Court flags consequences of growing digital divide. The digital divide is in the context of education. So let's have a general discussion on digital divide vis-a-vis online education. Let's play pros and cons for online education. Many educationists has raised major concern against online education. Screen learning creates negative health impact. The radiation coming out of the screen has negative effect on vision of children, and it has long-term impact on the health. Also, screen learning is actually passive learning, which you yourself must have observed sometime. When you're not taking notes, you might not be very effective. When the physical presence of teacher is gone, the motivation from the body language is gone. The attention span in this kind of passive learning is also very less. And all these impact the critical thinking ability of children. There is one serious drawback of screen learning. Online learning means you sit at home in an isolated environment and you try to study, you try to learn. So you are away from friends and peers, you are away from teachers. School is not just a place of academic study. School actually is a basic institution of socialization. It is where the child picks up morality and learn ethics. There are many observational learning in the school. For instance, we at IIT used to observe the professors, the simpleton life that they used to live. Many of them used to come on bicycle. Their dressing, their office setup, all of that was so simple yet beautiful. The opportunity cost, if you see from this perspective, of not going to school and colleges as learning institutions will be very high. There is also an administrative question. Our school system is in complete shambles. There are poor infrastructure. Because of absence of toilet, many girl child drop out of school. There is poor pupil-teacher ratio. The school curriculum needs to be updated. The examination system needs to be improved. School management needs an upgradation. But if there is more focus on online learning, then school administration will be neglected. And we will fail to improve our classrooms. It is said that classroom is the place where future of nation is developed. There is also an issue of digital divide. Children in the government school or children from the vulnerable section, from poor family, they do not have access to gadget or internet. Only 52% of Indians have internet access. India ranked 47 in the overall Inclusive Internet Index 2019. That means internet is also not equally available to both male and female. Even in well-to-do family, there might not be spare gadget, computer or mobile maybe, because parents might be doing work from home, and that will hamper the online learning of children, unless you buy more gadgets and provide a dedicated gadget, laptop or mobile to children. But on the flip side, the argument is that screen time is already very high for children. They are spending time with television, laptops, computer, mobile. So online education will actually be aiming at making the best use of already high screen time of children. And as far as having passive learning and lack of socialization is concerned, online education can be designed in such a way that apart from theoretical discussion, there are also assignments on physical education, yoga, arts, and they are also evaluated. Then to a certain extent, these two concerns will be taken care of. Also, in early childhood, a child's brain develops every day. So there is no question of any hindrance in education of children. In the time of lockdown, online education must continue. However, these are important concerns. Our school education must improve, and inequality must not grow. Digital India, digital technology should not be the source of digital divide. In this regard, learning gadgets can be made available to children. Smartphone, after all, is not a luxury good anymore. And with help of subsidy from the government, this can be done. But nothing can replace classroom education with physical presence of teacher. We must try our best and think as to how and when our school system will reopen, in what form. This interview article has given an idea that school might run initially with 50% strength, half of the children coming alternatively. Improved infrastructure with availability of tissue papers, sanitizers, soap and water, temperature check of teachers, students and non-teaching staff should be made mandatory. Social distancing should be followed strictly by students and teachers. The only way we can come above the economic, social and strategic challenge is through utilizing our demographic dividend. And the only way we can use demographic dividend is through education. There are other important articles in today's newspaper that we will not be discussing because they have been discussed already. The link to the discussion on these articles will be provided in the description section. There's one lead article on quasi-federal democracy on page number 6. On business page, there is an article on GSAP. On page number 4, in the Delhi edition, there is an article on ethanol blending of petrol. And the editorial article on this year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry based on organocatalyst. Now the time has come to check how much you have learned, how much you have listened, how much you have retained. I suggest you take this in form of a test. Take 2 minutes of time, attempt all the questions and see how many of them you have got correct. World Press Freedom Index is released by Economic Intelligence Unit. This is absolutely incorrect statement because it's released by Reporters Without Borders. India has lowest ranking in World Press Freedom Index among all BRICS nations. Well, South Africa does exceedingly well compared to India. It is ranked at 32. Brazil also does much better. India is at 142. But Russia is at 150 and China 177. So India is doing better than Russia and China, but this is not the direction we should be looking in. This is the direction that we should be looking at. Statement is incorrect, however. India is a state party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Well, mostly you can go with statements like this because India is party to most of the important international conventions. The statement is true. This convention came into force in 1973. It opened up for signature in 1966, but India joined it in 1979. But however, India is a state party. The concept of development as freedom was formulated by Amartya Sen. This is actually a book co-authored by Amartya Sen, and this book was published in 1999. A year later, Amartya Sen won Nobel Prize in Economics. So the statement can be considered as correct because this was the concept developed by Amartya Sen and his colleagues. Freedom of expression serves as an enabler for all other rights. This statement can be closely associated with Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This statement actually comes from Universal Declaration of Human Rights, so this is absolutely correct statement. But the thing is, since the Nobel Peace Prize this year has been given to reporters who have been fighting tooth and nail to protect the right to freedom of expression, in that context, this issue becomes extremely important and you must prepare it for the coming mains exam. What is the minimum number of states to be crossed on traveling from Tawang to Barahoti without crossing international border? You see, Tawang has been in news for various reasons, and you'll see an article on page number 1 today concerning some skirmish between Indian and Chinese side in the Tawang region. For the same reason, Barahoti in Uttarakhand has been in news. So if you have to move from Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh to Barahoti in Uttarakhand, you'll have to cross Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, West Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. So you'll have to cross 6 states without crossing the international border. So answer would be 6. Government Securities Acquisition Program GSAP involves both buying and selling of government securities by the RBI. The statement is incorrect. In general, open market operations involve both buying and selling of government securities, but in Government Securities Acquisition Program, RBI only buys government securities. The idea is to control the bond yield, and it results, of course, in infusion of money in the market. There is a news in today's newspaper concerning RBI's decision to keep Government Securities Acquisition Program on hold because too much of liquidity has come in the market and there is threat of rising inflation. Ethanol 20 program aims to achieve 20% ethanol blending in petrol by 2025. This is a factual, simple, straightforward statement and this is correct. Asymmetric organocatalysis helps produce selective molecules but increase waste in chemical manufacturing. The Nobel Prize for Chemistry this year has been awarded to researchers working in the field of asymmetric organocatalysis. They have been working since early 2000 and this has proven to be a groundbreaking technology. Asymmetric means the catalysis will not be happening for all kind of products. Molecules sometimes are very similar looking. So similar looking that they can be mirror images of each other. But just like some people, molecules might look similar, but they will behave very differently. They are called as chiral molecules. So asymmetric catalysis means the pair of molecules which are mirror images, both will not be created. Selectively, only one can be created. And from the point of view of chemistry, their properties will be different. So whichsoever molecule you desire, you selectively produce them. And when you do that, of course, you will not producing others that you don't require. And that will decrease waste in chemical manufacturing. So it's going to decrease, not increase. And you can be very, very selective with properties of molecule. And hence, the Nobel Prize. Among nationalization of Air India, recommendations submitted by State Reorganization Commission and annexation of Sikkim, which was chronologically first. Nationalization of Air India happened in 1953. The recommendation from State Reorganization Commission came in 1955. It was constituted in 1953, but it took 2 years of time to give the recommendation. And annexation of Sikkim happened in 1973. So chronologically first, I think, was nationalization of Air India. You must see your progress and you must mention your score and you must also mention the time that you took to give the test, if at all you gave the test. Now you have in front of you question for the day and also the answer to yesterday's question of the day. Please attempt the question, try to attempt the DNS quiz on the ELEARN platform as well. Post your answer in the comment section and have some fruitful discussion. Goodbye, take care.